Hi, this is BZ Rieger from Quantum Playground and the IUV, and I'm speaking with Beverly Welbourne. It's May 12th, 2018. Hi, Beverly.
Hi, BZ.
So Beverly does her own intuitive magic with the Atlas, which is I'll describe it probably inaccurately, but it's a bone in your body. It's right below the top of your head where the spine meets, and she's going to put my head back on straight.
Yay. Thank you, BZ. So what this looks like is the condition is that the atlas is twisted in everybody except for the people who have already had some procedure to change that, and also except for the children of a woman who has some corrective way to address it before she conceives that child. So we might say that the twist itself is most likely a genetic condition, and the chanting or universal frequency codes that I'm about to do with BZ constitute a way of correcting the energy field and therefore correcting that part of the DNA structure. And by its effect, that energy field, which is basically BZ's aura, tells her physical body what to do in order to have a relief of this twist that's in the high upper part of our necks. So I'll just, BZ and I have chatted a little bit already, but I'll just ask her again, do you have any questions or anything further that you'd like to say about what we're doing here today?
As with anything that has to do with energetics or modalities or encountering different beings who do these different things like you do, and work with people who do Bowen and all sorts of things. I'm always interested and fascinated in that. And usually when I come across something or someone will tell me about this, Sheila and Lisa had mentioned that they were doing this with you. What usually happens is that I feel into the story that someone is relaying, and then the practitioner, the conduit, the being who was creating that conduit for them in whatever modality it was. And as I was saying to you before, I had a ping, an inner knowing, where I could say to you that my soul said this would be fun for you to do, and an expansive thing. So that's usually how I tune into these things, and oftentimes we'll call a different practitioner and say, well, I heard about you from a friend and I'd like to do it. And sometimes they'll say, well, what trouble are you experiencing? I say, no, I'm just coming to play. So I'm coming to play, Beverly, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yay. Well, these things, of which I do think there are several now, there are lots and lots of things. These are tools for the expansion of our consciousness. And by the way, I think Bowen is great also. Bowen is a brilliant, system to work with the body. But anyway, I really appreciate it that you could hear the energy field behind what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that it is one of the tools or stepping stones towards our new reality, the new place where we are going. And I say that from my own experience of it, and then also I say it because people describe all sorts of things afterwards. They actually describe that they become more psychic, among other things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some sense that who we truly are can have a better chance of coming through once this torque on the body is relieved.
Right. Right. Okay, so I'm going to put it on pause now, and you're going to do what you're going to do. We'll play a bit, and then we'll come back, and people will see.
I think so.
More than one head or just a really straight head? All right, hang on one second. Okay, so Beverly just did, and you would describe it as chanting?
Yes, it's a language.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very ancient language. It's a very simple and powerful language that's being channeled by several people, actually, all over the globe right now.
Mm-hmm. One of the ways I would describe it is very familiar. The language, the resonance, the tone and tonings of it, and it's a feeling of memory, remembering, reconnecting, and very familiar, a metaphoric picture comes to mind of, if you have a memory of a child and people were all sitting around and they were talking and the voices were low murmurs, and it was that same kind of feeling. So it's, to me, I experience it as very familiar.
Yeah.
And
I understand that. It feels very, very familiar to me also.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I often hear what I describe the music of the spheres, and it's different than toning. Or tones. I do hear those as well, but more often I'll hear. It isn't like a song that we'd think in the linear aspect of it, but I'll hear that, and this has a similar resonance to it. So I think that if I was directly in a room with you and without the buffer of the the electronics and so on and so forth, it would have a more clear match to what I hear within my own being, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I understand what you're trying to describe.
Yeah, it's languages. This language is familiar. The other language is linear. But anyways, it's and when you started, actually before you started, you had said something when we had paused the recording, and you said a couple words. I just want to start, whatever, and then there was. Again, from a linear aspect, you could say there was a fairly long pause between when you stopped talking and when you started toning. But actually, my experience of it was, the pause, the quiet from your words, and then it was like an upswell. So. I might describe it as a big inhale of a breath, although it wasn't auditory from just a sense, hearing, but it was a big swell, and then a flow of energy before even my linear ears began to hear the toning. I was immersed in the toning, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that, and I really appreciate your sensitivity. I think that really that happens every time. It's just that a lot of people don't describe it so well as you just did. But it's when I am calling the other dimensional beings who help me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I call them to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, like from the perspective of a physical three-dimensional being, like what we just did, that's not possible. We substantially moved a bone in your neck, and I'm in Ohio and you're in California or whatever.
Washington, yeah.
You're in Washington. Sorry. Yeah, see, I don't even know where you are.
That's okay.
And so from that perspective, it isn't possible. However, with the help of some spirits or beings who have this much more multi-dimensional nature, it is possible. Suddenly it is possible. So that moment before I start to sing is me calling them in, because I have the perception that I'm singing the language. I mean, I'm singing the language that offers this energy field, but in fact, I am not personally doing it ever. They do it. And by the way, I think we got the puppy dog. I'm pretty sure we got the puppy dog's atlas too.
Well, the rose kitty was here as well, so
yeah,
that everybody came in and said, "Okay, I'm getting some of this. Let's get all three heads back on straight."
Yeah, because the companion animals all have the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like the animals that have this karmic agreement with humans, and even some other wild animals, they actually have the same issue, that the atlas is turned in this way, and horses too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not surprised, because they definitely have a big resonance. Well, perhaps it'd be interesting to see if where I am, there are horses. Actually, you could if we had played the recording during the pause, there were some whinnies going on. So I'm curious to see how big a field, that it goes out to,
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we got the dog.
Yeah, well, I know you got the cat too, because the cat fluffed. She came right in as soon as you started and walked down and looked, and Keegan was sitting right to my left, and Rose was in front of me walking towards me, and her eyes got really big, and they'll focus, they'll listen on to different things, and so they have different mannerisms or ways that they connect that I can recognize, how they're tuning in. But when you were starting to finish, a little bit before that, Rose the cat got up and started to walk a little further back down the hall, but it was like she'd been fluffed up. Mm-hmm. So her fur, not if I'm not talking about that they scared, but just as if she had been, brushed, or she'd given herself a nice cleaning. Everything seemed, although I wasn't touching her, much aerated, more smooth and fluffy. And anyways, that was fun. And Keegan enjoyed it, and then he's gone over now. He's flaked out. So.
Yeah, they often sleep after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people do too, but animals also, they often sleep, like for a long time, or and especially sound sleep. But yeah, it sounds like I got the cat. Yep, that sounds like it, because there's often a change in their eyes.
Yes.
So yes, I think we did it.
I'll show Beverly can't see you because she's not on camera, but come up here. Right, come up here and show the people on camera. You're gonna come.
Oh, there's the puppy dog. Hi.
Right there. You gotta look up there. Yeah. Hi. Okay.
Very good.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm interested to, as I said before when we were starting, that there's always different, for me anyways, I always have a sense of unpacking more things and more connections. I did also just want to share that for people who may be listening, is that when you were, so I had a question. When you're doing when you're the conduit and working with your other beings and bringing the tones in, or would you describe the tones as, we might in a linear song, so it's a song that has certain stanzas, certain verses that are connected, and so it's the beginning, the middle, and the end? Or would you describe it as there are these, I'm going to use the term verses to it, but when you're in the resonance field with the being that you're doing this on, does the song change a bit?
Well, first off, let me just address the sequences of tones. The typical thing is that there are these short musical phrases,
Mm-hmm.
and as you have already experienced, that short phrase is repeated maybe several times.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those short phrases has a specific meaning that can be translated into English.
Okay.
So when I switch phrases, I'm actually saying something different with each phrase. And the phrase for this first level is, it has to do with derotating the atlas, and it has to do with stabilizing the atlas, and it has to do with working with the axis, which is the next bone below.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has to do with working with the vertebrae as they continue down. It has to do with the release of the karma of the whole thing.
Right.
Like the fact that this twist exists,
right,
is getting, that karma is getting released.
right.
And then there's one for the coccyx, which echoes what's happening above. So that's the tailbone, the lowest bone. And let's see what else. I use the one to reduce inflammation on a lot of people, including you,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of, there's a tendency anyway, towards people having an inflammatory response as this releases.
Right.
So I use the one for like anti-inflammatory. And so each of those phrases like goes in, you know, each of those phrases goes in maybe repeatedly. And also maybe I go back to doing the one for the axis, and then I come back to the coccyx. You know, I'm like using all of them. And then in answer to kind of the second part of that question, yes, it's actually individualized.
Right.
So it's not just a totally pat thing. I'm listening to your system, and I'm discerning, like, okay, does she have this part of it? Does she have this part of it? Okay, how about this part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening for that energy field to come back from you, a lot like you would when you were saying like a new word to a child or something.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting the way you describe it, because the way that I would have described before having, you know, if we took that question I just gave you out of the video and I just continued on with my description of it, there were what I experienced not only from an auditory but from a whole energetic resonance field, a whole, I could feel it in the different, I see it as well, in the different systems, electromagnetic systems in my body, as well as other systems. But there were, so when you had said there were phrases that you repeat, and for me, there were distinct nuances in the phrase. So let's say if phrase one was already done, and then you did a couple other phrases, and then phrase one came up again, I could feel, sense, and actually see the harmonics within me connecting with that, there was a nuance. There was a slight nuance change, or I'm not quite sure the way, a modulation in how that was. And the reason I asked the question was because I was curious. I think part of that shift and nuance comes and change comes from what you're giving out. But I definitely got the sense it was where my field and my energy is meeting yours, and the resonance and the commingling of those two. And does that make sense in the nuance, the slightly different?
Yeah, I think you're doing a beautiful job of describing in English the subtlety of what happens in the energy field.
Yeah.
A lot of people have much more trouble describing it than you just did. I think that was just great.
Cool. Well, so there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of stuff still going on. And like I said, the way I feel it, I can see a shift in the colors. It's, a very linear way to describe it might be if you were looking at different colored lights on different lanes or highways, but I can see them throughout in different areas of the body, and they'll kind of call attention to me, and there's a conversation, because not only I am, but we all are, we're multidimensional, so I can just be me, busy in the chair with this computer, and Beverly's there, and we're having this session, and Beverly is doing, her modality, what she's doing, and I'm sitting here just, one might say, just sitting here doing nothing. Well, that is true. That's correct on one perspective, one level. But there's multiple things going on, and so I can be the being in the chair who's connecting with the conduit and the other multidimensional beings as well as Beverly. But I can also be observing this as well. So I can hold. I can truly experience that multidimensionality from different perspectives of what's being co-created with all of us, if that makes sense.
Yes. Again, I think that's a brilliant description. I mean, yeah. My experience of it is that I can usually see things happening with the client, and in fact, every time I do it, things are still happening with me.
Yes.
So, I mean, and this is after I literally have done several hundred.
Right.
And lots of dogs, cats, and horses, as well as a bunch of people. I just think that this is part of our evolution into something beyond what we previously knew and beyond what we previously were capable of.
Right.
And it's happening in coordination and through holographic resonance at all these different levels. It's happening like way down on a cellular DNA level. It's happening at the level of the physical structure, like the structure of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening in these energy fields that are, like your field is all around you and your body is inside it. It's happening in that energy field. It's happening at the level of our interaction. We're just these two women having this interaction. And it's happening at the level of all of the people that each of us is able to touch. And I just mean in consciousness, and in our energetics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening at the level of our country. It's happening in the changes in these previously known structures. these structures are changing into something else that has more multidimensionality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening across the globe.
Right. Well, again, a very simple linear descriptor would be that as there's coherence between you, myself, Keegan, Rose, and the other beings who came in to do this all today, it's changed the morphogenic field of not only the locality of that, but since we're all individual, that singularity and one, it has changed everything and kind of up-leveled another expansion for all, and how that will translate out, that will transmit out, that will connect out, whether someone is right next to me or I'm connecting on a computer like this or remotely through energy. So, one of the things that I spend time playing with people is to understand that it isn't just someone, if I can knock on this table right here and you can hear me do that. It's not just that is where the connection is and the effect and the affect and effect, and then the coherence with it's all of it.
Yes. Thank you so much for being able to articulate these things. I really appreciate the leadership that you've shown as the whole thing unfolds, with the end of the previous government and the beginning of some other more functional systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really appreciate the leadership that you've shown. You've really stepped forth, and I very much appreciate your work.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, it's always fun to play, and we haven't even started playing, and I mean the Royal Universal Galactic all of Source's universe is we, but we're just ready to start shining all of our lights far beyond whatever level, dimension, frequency, neighborhood that we've already been residing in, and that could be third, fourth, fifth, all the way up. Every one of us, every entity, every being is in this shift and making this these continued expansions, and they're the way I hold it is that they're fantastical and magic and wondrous.
Yes.
All swimming in the river of love, and none of us, wherever we reside, have seen anything yet.
Yes, I think that's correct. You ain't seen nothing yet. Yep, that's right. That's exactly how it feels to me too.
And designing it and bringing it forth individually and collectively as well. So it's we haven't seen it and we've already seen it because we're creating it.
Yes.
All at the same time.
Yes. I get it. All of that, both of those.
Well, thank you so much, Beverly. It was great fun to play, and I'll post this video after I've got to finish working today, but I'll post this video and I'll put your information in there. And I know you have some cool articles as well as other information about this on your site, so I'll make sure that I have links to those as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Talk to you later.